Let's get it all out before I get started. What is crack-a-lackin', everybody? We are back for yet another episode of the MUPS. And instantly, what I was going to do to look nice, while writing out this title, I was going to be like, oh, I'm going to make this look really nice. And then I made my first mistake and just didn't want to fix it. But that's how planning goes. When you're just in the planning stages, it doesn't have to look nice, and honestly, that's kind of a beautiful thing. We are back with the MUPS, and it has been a while. I know I originally told everyone, like, hey, I'm going to do this at my own pace, and y'all can't tell me what to do. So there's no schedule on this. I'm just going to do it as I do it. But it actually has been quite a while, and I apologize. I don't really remember how it's been with the upload schedule, but as far as recording goes, it's been like 3 weeks for me. I think I probably said something in the last episode of like, oh, next time I'm going to work on this. um, I'm running a little bit out of time, so I didn't go back and watch my last episode to see what I told myself to do. But I think the last episode was when I went into Blender and I was setting up all those shape key things so that dude could smile in all the different ways. And I need to go back and actually put bones to that, which I am kind of excited to do, and I might be doing that next because this story progress that I've been trying to plan has come to a big screeching halt. It has been so difficult for me to come up with an idea for what the other characters are going to do, but I have done some thinking and a little refining. I was kind of thinking about like the big story, not the biggest big story. I don't know what that is, but that looks kind of nice. The big story, not like the huge one that is the original one that I have planned, but like for this smaller series, like I just wanted to put into perspective, like I know, like yeah, there's a great big tower that they're climbing. There's going to be a boss at the top or something. Um, but why? Why are these people all coming in, working their way up through something so deadly and terrifying? Like, what is it that the boss is trying to do? Why do they need to stop it? And like what's actually happening here? Where are they at? What's the theme? What's the setting? Because also, if I think about it, when it comes to making monsters and baddies and whatnot, like they fit into the story a lot better if they have a setting, like a theme. Like you wouldn't see a skeleton pirate dude on a spaceship, and it just doesn't, like, yeah, that's a monster. It's kind of like Minecraft, where everywhere you go, there's another zombie and another skeleton. You're walking around in the plains, there's a zombie. You start swimming around underwater, there's a zombie, and like it doesn't fit. So anyway, I wanted to look into the idea of what's the main idea here. That sounds like some word out of school or something. And I wanted to break it up into simple terms because I just want to keep things simple. So there is a great big tower, or a set of towers, which has also been an idea that I've thrown around, that kind of like have little connecting, uh, bridges in between at different parts, so you go from one tower to another. And my stylus is really laggy today. What's up with that? Um, but anyway, there's this massive. I almost want to call it a spire. It is quite large, and I'm thinking that this thing, being a dungeon, I spoke a little bit about how there's this energy that's kind of emanating from the planet that is like their like faction spiritual thing that was destroyed, and so now his energy has been dissipated and just kind of comes up from the planet, and this allows them for things like uh, getting items, their special abilities to work, trading, and if you've ever seen Log Horizon, they had this idea where if people set up a city, they could use this like ancient magic kind of thing to put up a barrier. So like the deep underground, there's this little device that uses the greatest, most ancient magic kind of thing that puts up like an invisible barrier. You don't actually see it, but it makes it so that the monsters from outside can't get inside, and it keeps people safe inside. And at one point they had to destroy something that was going on inside, but to do so they had to get rid of this, and so it left the city vulnerable for a long time. So where I was going with that, as I ramble on trying to remember, yes, so I'm thinking that that could also be used in terms of what this energy is used for. It's like in the lands surrounding the cities, you have your general monster spawns, and it's kind of like pretty simple. They're the ones indigenous to the area, but the real like big, bad, scary, strong monsters are the ones that spawn in dungeons. And I'm thinking that's because there's like a darkness energy, or whatever the other faction is that are still alive have control over these dungeons, and it has these energies around them that disable a lot of things from the overworld. So like that's why you can't fly in there, and maybe in some cases can't teleport, but I'm not sure how I feel about that one yet. There's just like a lot of functions that people have from the outside that you cannot take inside. And so I kind of liked that idea. I think I mentioned in the original first episode that these tiny humans, they have this like to the sky feeling about them. They have this drive and motivation that most other species don't have, and kind of that like human spirit thing, and that they're always willing to keep going. And I wanted them to enter dark places and bring the light into them. So that's kind of another example of this. And so they come in here with their small bits of light, and they're going around fighting the things inside the darkness. And what I'm thinking is that this great big tower, there might be like a city over here, city over here. It's kind of like not really near one particular city, but it's kind of in the region of a few of them. And what's going on is that this boss that is I don't know why I always think of boss wings like this. That's something from a PlayStation game where it had upside down wings. It was kind of cool. This boss, when summoned up here at the top, is going to use this spire as like an antenna. I don't know how to draw this to make it look like an antenna, like a radio beacon or something. And when it unleashes its power, it's going to send all the darkness of this just out into the land. And so it's going to kind of push back that light and make a barrier of darkness instead. So in the regions of these cities, you have the big spire in the middle. Usually there's the light that's coming from the place as normal, and the darkness is just within here. But after this shoots out its darkness over the land, suddenly all the things that can't happen inside here cannot happen in this whole land area. It's pushing out, it's keeping the light out and only the darkness inside. And lots of the really bad, stronger monsters that spawn in these dungeons are going to start spawning in the cities and around the cities, becoming very deadly, especially for people who are not trained to fight these things. And so when it comes to the big story, or the main idea for this short series, the idea is to stop that. And so I liked the idea of having to ascend the tower, but also it's a race against the clock kind of thing. Race, yeah, there's that dyslexia. Race against the clock. Nah. So that's kind of out of the way there. That was some thinking that I had on like why they're here, what's going on, what's the main point. The only thing missing from this is that I either have to choose that this boss is going to spawn on its own and try and make this happen, or like I originally planned, that there's like an evil dude trying to run up here and gain control of this thing for some reason, whether he doesn't know what it's going to do or he has some plan to use this in his own whatever kind of way. I still need to come up with that, but that's still just going to fall into the race against the clock thing. So So that's some new development that's happened there. Then next, there's the idea of the split parties. And I'm thinking, at first I was going to be like, I'm only going to show these guys and just like make reference that these people are here. But I did decide that I was actually going to do those parts too. And whereas this was going to be like 3 episodes long, this might actually be like more. I don't know how many more, but hopefully I am not giving myself too much of a workload here. I think once I make the actual assets for all this, it'll go a little faster. I think that was the point of me learning 3D animation in the first place years and years ago, was that I liked the idea of 2D animation, but you literally have to start over every new frame of animation. And I thought like, oh, 3D animation, you build it once and it's there, and then you just go, and it makes it much faster that way, so I need to remember that. We started out in this region with the knight character, the blade character, and ranger. And I kind of went over what they were going to do, which was they come in the little bridge thing, they get the puzzle room where they have to do the parkour against the monsters, and then another like transition room, kind of like a mini boss fight, and they'll get like an orb out of it, and then they either teleport or work their way up the tower somehow, and then that's when they get the main boss fight. And so I said I would come back and work on the stories of these guys, since I decided I'm going to add them in. And that's what's been giving me a lot of trouble this past couple weeks. Not only that, but it's like the season time, the holiday seasons, and work has been really busy, and I've just been coming home and just trying to relax my brain. I used to say that I was planning these things during loading screens of Destiny, but they actually had a wonderful update lately that cut down their loading times by like 75%, so there's actually not much time for that in loading screens anymore. So that's kind of cool, but also kind of sad. Next up, what I've been trying so hard to plan was these guys. I think what I decided was that there is going to be the Knuckle Duster, which is Fist McPunchies. Just as a quick reminder, I feel like I should draw this one so it makes a little bit more sense, because that's a hand. Pew pew, yeah. And then there is going to be a Jester, which uses the yo-yos, although probably a little cooler looking than that. And then they also could switch to the big wrecking ball weapon, which I think is just really cool. And then the third one I am thinking is a mage, like an elementor of some sort. I remember I was trying to come up with a good set of class distribution, because they had to split here, and they had like 1.5 healers, being the actual healing class, and Mr. Knuckle Duster here. He doesn't have, if you remember how I mentioned, like they start out without a job, they get their like first little job, and then that splits into the choice of some other jobs. You have the first class and the second class. This guy starts out with the first class of the healer, but rather than choosing the healing class, he went for the fighting instead. So he doesn't have the healing abilities that the healer class would, but he does have the basic ones from down here. So he can do some healing type of things, but not nearly as much, so that's why I say 1.5 as the healer. But anyway, that's what I've chosen for this. I'm a little sad because when I look back on my choices, I don't think that they are the right ones to be made right here. Of like, oh, we don't have very many healers. Who gets to take the healer? All right, let's split into groups. Let's get a group that doesn't really need much healing, which kind of seems to be this one. I think that one kind of went okay. And then this class, like he does self-buff, so he can work pretty well. This is a pretty mid-range thing. And then a mage. I guess that works. That doesn't need a whole lot of healing. And then in the last piece of the fork here, prong of the fork, if I should say, I went with the healer. And then there is the blade that's like the dangerous two-handed sword one. So that guy definitely would need some heals. And then with this one, I think. Oh, what did I choose? And I left my clipboard in the other room. Oh man. But I should say I haven't really done much planning on these guys yet. I've mostly been focusing on this one. But this one I think was it two blades? I remember that this blade was a dude. And this healer was a female. Look at me not knowing how to draw those symbols. There we go. And then the last one was also a female. But it was either a blade or a ranger. I can't remember which one. I think it was ranger, but like the dual wield kind. Okay, so there we go. This party here, I feel like I don't know what I'm talking about. That works. That works fine. That works because that would need healing. I don't know what I'm talking about. Almost done here. I was hoping that this episode was going to be shorter, which I guess it still might be because I've been giving you like 45-minute episodes. So the middle prong of the fork, we have the knuckle duster. We have the jester, which I still need to come up with another name for that class because that's still the one from the video game. And then a mage. And so what I have to start them off with, I mentioned before, they also enter in on that bridge. I think they're all going to do that because that's how the room forks off and leads into different places with those bridges. Although in this room, the bridge is broken, and they can't get to the destination that is the easy path to get to. And so they pull out their map and looking at it, and people have made it at least this high up in the tower before. And so while they're wondering what to do, they're looking like over the cliff into the darkness, and someone mentions like, wow, it says here on the map that it is perfectly safe to jump down. There's water at the bottom. And I wanted to make this dumb little joke of being like, well, who was dumb enough to try that out? And then said like, oh, there's a footnote and it says my teammate pushed me off. And then I wanted to do the whole like Avatar Roku thing of just that's rough, buddy, and that was kind of funny. But then they decide like, all right, we'll go ahead and jump down. And I think on the map that's just like the last note from them, and I don't know if they forget to check or if they make mention of it that there's nothing after that. So I'm not sure if the previous people teleported out or if they died in there, And so they go ahead and I don't know if they just willingly jump in or if they go ahead and kick them off like the map said. And I think I may have mentioned in the last one, it might have been like what I ended off with, is that they fall into a room of water, and there's like these little pedestals, or these little cylindrical things sticking out, and then a scary monster in the water. And I think that was all I told you. And I have been trying to think about this for weeks, of what they do in there. I don't know why I was so set on it, why I didn't just change it. But for some reason, I wanted it to be this. And I had the breakthrough yesterday. I mean, I've had a series of breakthroughs, but I think I've got this down. And I went ahead and prepared a little scene in Blender for you. This is just a mock-up kind of thing. I've been going around, I've been asking my coworkers, I've been asking my friends, like, okay, you all play video games, you know what dungeons are like. Here's a room filled with water, and they're like, what happens? Like, I tried to give them a challenge of what happens. And for some reason, I was just kind of blown off by a lot of people. And the best idea that I was given was by my coworker Dakota. He said, why not make it like a rhythm, like Simon Says kind of puzzle, where you have to like jump along these things in a correct order to get to a door on the side. And if you step on the wrong one, it breaks and you fall into the water and have to deal with the scary monster inside. Which I was rolling with that for quite a while. I do like the idea of having to do something simple and annoying, like a Simon Says rhythm type of thing, or like a follow the pattern kind of thing, while you're also trying to avoid certain death. So I might use that later, but I didn't actually go along with that. Sorry, Dakota. So here's like the massive tube that they fall into. As a very basic version, it's gonna be way better decorated than that. And the final thing, of course, as well as the monster, because that would be kind of silly if they were fighting that thing. And so they fall down, and then they land in the water, become aware of this monster, and somehow make it out onto the little pedestals here. And this monster is going to be periodically jumping out. I don't think it'll look like this. I think I'm imagining more like the Legiacris from Monster Hunter, if Future Colin can put a picture right here of the Legiacris. Something similar to that. It's going to be jumping out and like trying to knock them off into the water to better eviscerate them in the water. And obviously they can't make it back up where they fell down, but there isn't any particularly visible doors to get out of here. And that's very confusing. And so they're standing in here. They are trying to get everyone up on here so that this thing doesn't kill them. They're trying to jump from spot to spot so that as it's jumping around, it doesn't kill them. Trying to figure out how to get out of this room. And once the monster's fighting them enough, they try and fight back against the monster and realize that that's going to be a very tough thing to do. I don't know if I should tell you this yet, but there is one pedestal that is down here further underwater and not up above the water. That's going to become important. You will also notice there are these things along the wall with little holes in the bottom of them, as well as these two things up here. Whilst fighting, they are going to accidentally, I don't know if these should be this high up on the wall or not, but either the beast is going to run into it, they're going to hit it with something, or maybe the yo-yo jester person tries to like use the chains to rappel on it or something, and it's going to pull down on this lever thing here. It's going to rotate it down. And they think like, oh, I didn't know that was going to move. And that is going to set off, I probably should have named these things. Turn this one on. That is going to set off a water valve. And water is going to start pouring in from all those things on the wall. And so that is going to make it so that this water level is going to rise. Not with the pedestals, but the water is going to start going up, and some of these are going to start going away because they're underwater and they can't get to it. And so then when I think they try and turn it back off, so maybe I shouldn't have rotated this quite that much, but they try and turn it back off, and they just completely like snap it and break it, and so that falls down into the water. And you think like, oh, they broke it, that should fix it, but actually that makes it worse. And so then I turn this one back on, and then you can see like, oh, the water is much more intense now, and they're probably going to be down to like 2 or 3 of these left, and the water's rising, and certain death is getting closer and closer. So then they turn their eyes to this other one in the room, not knowing what it does yet, but they think that they don't really have much of a choice because they can't fight the boss as they are. And wow, I completely forgot to make one piece of this, but I'll come back to that. So they go ahead and turn this without breaking it. And what that does, if I turn these things back off, so put that back in, is it rotates these things in the room sideways. So that's going to control like the direction of the water flow. And then the water is going to be pouring out like this instead. And the beautiful thing about that is that you now have a vortex. And what I forgot to make was the new thing for the water. Let me just pop back in just a second and show you. Alright, so I didn't make that quite perfectly because these things are getting a little confusing. So let me just, because I'm probably just going to delete this file afterwards. Just get those out of my face. There we go. So the water is coming in at an angle, and what that's going to do is turn the water from before into a vortex. And as that gets started, it's going to, the water is just going to kind of start getting higher and higher up the walls. And then the space in the middle is going to reveal more and more as this climbs higher and higher up the walls, kind of like this. And so all of a sudden they have access to all those sunken pillars again, as well as a lot that's underneath it, which is going to reveal this one down here, that one that was a lot deeper down there. And what's also terrifying about this is that now this monster dude is going to be going along, flying around, jumping out from the walls at them. It's going to be kind of terrifying. And if they fall, they'd land in the water and get struck by this vortex, and that'll be really dangerous. But the actual exit for this place, if I can get that out of my way again, is this one? No, it's this one down here. The actual exit for this place is on this pillar that's further down below. There's going to be like an exit here, but also, let's do this. There's also going to be a bunch of like bars over it, so it's kind of locked, but you can still get in there. And so now, while everyone's trying to fight off this thing and trying not to fall in the water, they were going to start blasting at the bars, trying to get rid of the bars, and then I think I was going to have the knuckle duster dude just kind of use one big like ground pound attack to knock through the bars and make their way down into the pipes below and onto the next area. I don't know why that took me so long to come up with, but I am quite happy with it. I think that in the final scene it'll look nice because of all the water spinning around, the particles of just little bits of water, the wind. The only thing I really have to make note of is that anyone in this scene is going to have an extra addition to their rig, which will allow for their hair to move around like it would underwater, because after your hair gets wet it acts a little differently. But I did it. Yay! So I can either next time figure out where they go from here, like where does that pipe lead, where does it take them, try and work on the starter puzzle for the third prong of the fork, or if that's not working too well, I can go back in and make some bones for this guy. Oh, whoops, ignore that. That might have also been another thing taking up some of my time. We're just gonna not talk about. No, we can talk about that. I have had a bucket list item for many years now, which was to record my own Pokemon Nuzlocke Let's Play. And I did start that. It's going pretty well, actually. And so I just made this as a very quick, stupid little intro. It's kind of cringy, and I probably want to change it. But, yeah, that's what that is. But anyway, that's over on the Razcon channel, by the way. So if you type this into YouTube, you can find that. That's my gaming channel. So I got really distracted by that. It is going well. A lot of things have died, but I'm still going strong, and I'm on like the third gym so far. So I made all these shape keys to make different facial expressions. So if I don't do those first two things that I mentioned, I might come back and just make a bone face rig for him while talking about who knows what else. Hope you enjoyed this episode of MUPS. And let me find it. There it is. That's about all I have to say. Wish me luck. Goodbye.